I'm waiting to get confirmation that we're going live
Okay.
here. All right. It says we are live now. So we should be rolling. Nick, pleasure to have you on here, guys. Welcome to our Thursday night live session here inside our Facebook group for everything Airbnb arbitrage and co-hosting. And I'm excited that this week we actually are bringing on one of the mentees in the Airpreneur community, Nick. And Nick had landed a pretty significant opportunity recently. So this single arbitrage property actually is projected to do anywhere from eight to $10,000 a month in revenue, which is like ridiculous for a first time deal. But it's crazy because like Nick like didn't have a lot of experience with this at all. This was his very first opportunity, and he picked an absolute winner. And I mean, I'll speak for him and say, and I'm pretty sure he's ready to dive into the next one pretty quickly. But Nick, thank you so much for coming on. Welcome aboard here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to do it.
100%, man. 100%. Well, guys, if you're joining us live, go ahead and drop a me in the comments just so I know that the technical, logistical crap is working here on Facebook. So we'd love to see if you're joining us here live. Well, Nick, I think what we're going to do is we're going to start off by asking kind of the common questions. I do apologize, everyone. I am in public at the moment. I was on the road and I had to find a place to post up and do this. So apologies if it's loud. So I will mute when you're talking, Nick, but I think let's kind of start with like the basics here is why did you even decide to get into Airbnb arbitrage?
Yeah, I've been fascinated with Airbnb for the last couple of years. In my head, I always figured that I'd have to save enough money up to get my own property, to own it and then run it as an Airbnb. So learning about this model was encouraging for me and really allowed me to just kind of jump right into it with kind of the capital I already had saved up.
Totally makes sense. It's like when you do have you have limited capital to spend, you don't want to have to dump it all into purchasing a property. It's a way higher risk, right?
Mhm.
So cool. So I guess that brings you to, scouting for your very first Airbnb arbitrage property, right? So could you talk a little bit about how you found this opportunity and how you knew that it would do well?
Yeah, so I started, so I'm from Wisconsin, from the Milwaukee area. Spent a lot of time out in Arizona playing baseball. And so so I started looking more in the Phoenix, Scottsdale area just because I know how popular that area is, especially during certain times of the year. And so I was looking on hot pads originally, doing a lot of research, ended up kind of fooling around actually. I was just looking at furnished properties that were a little bit higher end, came across this one, and I was going into it. I was kind of planning on it turning into a co-hosting deal just because it was already furnished and I didn't think that, the numbers would make sense with the high rent cost. But then talked to the landlord a couple times and it worked out to go just a simple arbitrage route. So it's all worked out pretty well. But yeah, I found the property on hot pads.
Got it. Yeah. So for those listening, Hotpads is a platform that we use with our students a lot. And it's basically like going onto, like a Zillow or a Trulia or apartments.com. It's very similar to all of them. As a matter of fact, I think it's owned by the same parent company. But there is an option on there to allow you to just go to search and filter by for rent by owner properties. So you can go specifically like right to the landlords and skip the middlemen, right? So Nick, what did the research phase of this look like? Like, how did you know that this property would be a winner? Like, how did you kind of assess the market of Scottsdale? How did we look at like comparable properties to make like, could you give us kind of like a brief overview of the property selection process so we knew going into it, hey, this thing's going to make money?
Sure. Yeah. The property was listed at 6K a month for rent. So pretty high up there. Then I did some comparison on the other properties using AirDNA, analyzing, this is a three bedroom, the one that I have, 2 to 3 bedroom houses with a pool and a hot tub in the Scottsdale, Phoenix area, and found that the annual revenue numbers, were anywhere from 90 to 105, 110K. So, breaking that down with the analysis that you guys provide for us, we were able to see that it could profit, hit that bar that we're shooting for every month. So then I proceeded further with it.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. So, guys, that's kind of the process that we take everyone through is like when, they're looking for a particular market to target, what we'll do is we'll go into that market, we'll identify kind of like a pocket of properties that are like bound to make money just due to the trends of, all of the other comparables in the area. And then when you find a property that's a potential deal, then what we'll do is we'll run it up against those comps and we'll start to calculate, all right, what's the actual profit margin on this? So we found this property and we felt very good about it. We automatically like knew right off the bat this would cash flow anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 per month, sometimes $4,000 per month, depending on the month of the year. But of course, it's seasonal. So about on an average, what do you expect this to cash flow in like, a consistent 12-month basis, accounting for the low seasons, the high seasons, Nick?
Yeah, a little bit over 1,000. It should. Summer months are the slow months here in Arizona. You know, probably break even, maybe a little bit of profit those months, but then February, March, maybe even more January, those months I could profit anywhere from probably 3 to 4K. So obviously the big scheme of things, look at it more with the lens of the whole year rather than month by month, and the overall picture looks pretty good. But yeah, comparing some of the other properties we found, ones that were making 90 to 95K a year, comparing my property to theirs, we thought we were pretty confident in it being able to compete with those.
Yeah, and honestly, that's a really conservative estimate. Like in the worst case scenario, if you
Mhm.
compete with a $95,000 property, you're making on average like $1,000 to $1,500 a month. But if we exceed that, and like, obviously we run all of our numbers conservatively, and you do hit that
Mhm.
$110,000 a month or $110,000 a year mark, that's like
Yeah.
an immediate bump to like 2K beyond consistently. So you finally got the property recently, right? You
Mhm.
went live, I think like within the last couple of days, or you listed it not too long ago, but like how does your first 1 to 2 months look? Because I know so many people get concerned, like, hey, when I list the property, how quickly am I going to start seeing bookings? How do I know I'm going to make money? So like, what are you seeing so far with just being live for a short time frame?
Yeah, so I actually was fortunate. My lease started on the 10th. So I've been in there setting up this week. But I had the photos that the owner used on hot pads. And so I used those photos and was able to list it ahead of time. I think about a week and a half, 2 weeks before my lease even started. That way I was able to get bookings to start coming in. And before March 10th, I actually had filled out all of March already. So before my lease even started, I had 3 guests staying. And my first guest just checked in today. So it's live. The setup process is pretty chaotic, but also fun at the same time. So
Yeah, that's one thing I like to say about arbitrage is it's like it's just a more enjoyable method of real estate. It's different. Like
yeah.
you get to stress your creative mind a bit, and it's not just like stereotypical like rent, make $500 cash flow. Like it's like there's a
Mhm.
creative element to it, and it's more fun. So like people that have like a creative design component to them, or they want to build out like a business, this is a definitely a more fun and engaging way to get into real estate. So that's cool. That's cool. So talk about like when you reached out to the landlord, I know we trained you, we walked you through how to have that pitch with the landlord, but like overall, what did that conversation like look like from a bird's eye view? And did you feel
Mhm.
like when we trained you on the process, it put you in a good position to like get him to say yes pretty quickly?
Yeah, so I had a few phone calls with him. I could tell by the first call or two that it was something he was interested in. The situation was pretty fortunate. He had a newborn within the last 2 months, so just providing the passive nature of this business and how we kind of take it over for him was really a huge selling point for him. Spend more time with the baby and the family. So that was kind of how that process shook out. And then I believe it's really important to find a owner who you can tell is like communicative and really involved. And he said from the jump within the first 2 or 3 calls that he was like, I respect the grind and I want to see you do well. So just hearing that from someone can mean a lot versus we had an owner I was talking to right before I actually landed this deal who I didn't feel comfortable with. It wasn't answering a lot of my questions, kind of tiptoeing around certain things. The owners are choosing you, but you're also choosing them because you're going to be working with them for multiple years. So
That's an awesome point to make, which is like you're kind of entering into a partnership with them and you want to make
mhm.
sure that they're going to be cooperative with you. The other thing I want to emphasize too is so many people on the outside of arbitrage who haven't started yet, including myself. Like before I started, I was always worried, like, how do I get a landlord to say yes? And you just
Yeah.
talked about being in a position where a bunch of landlords said yes, and you got to pick like
Mhm.
which one you wanted to partner with, right? So
Yeah.
I think that that's like just an awesome like testament to like what an effective like pitch could do when you're actually like looking for arbitrage properties because they see it as
Mhm.
valuable, like you're making their life easier.
Totally.
Cool. So you've
Real
got
quickly,
the
I
go
just
ahead,
want
go
to
ahead.
add, like we were going through this process too, for me, it was it was huge to understand that this isn't a sales pitch because it truly is a win-win for both sides. You're not trying to sell something that you don't believe in. You're trying to sell them on the opportunity to make this, obviously it's an advantage for you, but it's also an advantage for them, being more removed from it. And this property in particular, I mean, this guy gets to sit back now and collect $5,000 a month and not have to do a thing. So that part of it is understanding that it is a win-win, kind of helps you go into the calls of pitching the landlords a little bit more genuine and being yourself and not try to sound so scripted and salesy. So
Yeah, 100%. I think you hit the absolute nail on the head. It is a win-win partnership. It's not just about like I want to Airbnb your property, right? So, hey man, you did this whole process beautifully. I remember you were sending us interested landlords left and right, and it was just a matter of picking the right opportunity that made the most sense. How prepared do you feel like you are for your next opportunity? Like, how excited are you to jump into another one?
I feel really prepared, especially landing this one being a three bed, three bath, with a pool and a hot tub. It's a lot more to manage. I'm excited to kind of get into more of like maybe the one bedroom, two bedrooms, a little bit simpler of a process. So I do feel super prepared and I'm ready, once I get everything, smoothed out with this first one to get back into the next one.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I know you have ambitions of scaling. I guess like for anybody who's on the fence about starting with Airbnb arbitrage, or they think it's like very intimidating from the outside looking in, what would be some advice that you'd have for that?
Yeah, I would say the one thing that helped hearing you say the most was breaking it down in the three steps. So, you correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like phase one is property acquisition, phase two is, the setup and all that stuff, and then phase three is kind of the team build out, making sure you have everything in place. For me, the way my mind works is, and a lot of other people too, I think we want to think so many far steps ahead. And for me, just being able to focus on like one step at a time and not worried about, how am I going to communicate with my cleaners before I haven't even made any phone calls with any landlords yet. So I think that advice is super helpful.
That's super important and relevant because it's funny, people will join like this mentorship or just in general, like they haven't even landed their first property yet, and they're already
Mhm.
asking about like, well, how do I find a cleaner? Or like, what do I do if something breaks? Or what about, and it's like everybody has this sense of like wanting to control every component of it. When in
Mhm.
actuality, it's like, dude, you didn't even land the property yet. Like you're thinking
Yeah.
way far ahead, So I think you just like you took the advice to heart and you just said, look, I'm gonna focus right now on getting this property and I will learn the next step as I
Yep.
go. So, dude, you've executed beautifully.
Thank
I
you.
guess my final question for you is, overall, what are what would you advise somebody who's on the fence about potentially getting a mentor for jumping into the world of Airbnb arbitrage, or even considering the airpreneur team like Adam and myself, who, is on the fence about that, or they're just not sure if like we might pull through on our what we promised we deliver just because there's a lot of like scams and stuff out there or whatever,
Mhm.
or just mentorship in general. So like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that can be tough. I remember, this is actually the first mentorship I've joined, so forking up type of money to pay for a mentor is 100% scary for anyone who's done it or is thinking about doing it. The one thing I will say about you guys and why I felt so comfortable with it is, Adam was the first one I got connected with, and messaging with him, I just felt a very like genuine, um, vibe from him. And then, going through the process and jumping in with you guys. Adam and Vince in this program are super involved. They hold you accountable along with, the other people in the community. And they truly do care, which I'm sure you can attest to with the mentorships you've had, that not everyone is super involved and really care like you guys do. So and then I'll just say, just like the breakdown of steps in the airpreneur community is super helpful, and being able to learn from everyone else that's involved in the community too. So I'm super grateful for you guys and everything that how things have transpired so far. It's been pretty smooth but it's going to be scary, but you kind of just have to just keep walking with that fear and keep going. So that's what I have to say about that.
I genuinely really do appreciate that. Nick, it's been awesome to see what you've been able to accomplish in such a short time frame. I think you only joined like 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So with that being said, man, I know now that you have the momentum, this is when the magic starts happening, and then the ball starts rolling, and you get more
Mhm.
properties. So, yeah, that's all I have for you. Do you have any closing thoughts or anything you'd like to share?
I don't think so. No, I think covered it all. So appreciate
Awesome.
you.
100%. Guys, that was Nick. Landed his first property in 6 weeks, makes 8 to 10K per month in revenue. Cash flows anywhere from $1,000 to $4,000 a month, depending on the month. But overall, insane progress. Awesome story. Very relatable, I think, to a lot of folks who are just starting out who are intimidated by doing this. But it's all about just the execution, making sure you're focusing on one step at a time. Nick, thanks so much for coming on. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this live. If you are on the fence and you're considering having a mentor, guide you and into a similar situation that Nick was in, go ahead and just comment the word Nick. I'm just going to use Nick as a tag here. And what we'll do is we will reach out to you here on Facebook. We'll send you a direct message. And we will, basically see if this is something that may be a fit for you. We may propose getting on a free consultation for about 45 minutes to an hour to gauge what your goals are and if this is a fit. But overall, please let us know if this is something that you'd be interested in. Just comment the word Nick if you'd like to be mentored into getting a deal like Nick did, and we'll reach out to you here on Facebook. Otherwise, thanks so much for tuning in. Nick, thank you so much for coming on and
Yeah,
looking
thank
as
you guys.
stylish as you can be. And guys, have a great evening. We'll see you next Thursday. Peace.